Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 465. Hey, Miller, along with Johnny V.
Yes, along with Johnny V. Every week, Terry, I'm here. Someone's got to push the buttons.
Yeah. Most of the time it's you, and most of the time it's me. But here we are tonight. And wow, coming off of a silver event this past weekend, and now heading into a 4-day Elite Plus. Yeah, maybe that's the tour. It's not a playoff. I think I just called it a playoff in my Instagram post. I can't keep them all straight. It's an Elite Plus.
It's an Elite Plus event and part of the new Unified series.
Ah, okay. Super easy. I'll keep this all straight and easy. Not a problem whatsoever for me. Elite Plus generally means what, Johnny?
Elite Plus means that the points are doubled, and it's like you get like 125% or some crap. I don't know. Yeah, I believe you get 100. No, I believe it's like 150. I think it's 150%. I think it's 150%. And as far as the broadcast goes, there's usually a companion broadcast that goes along with the Elite Series. I can't for certain say if that's what's happening this weekend. I don't believe there is because of the split events, the split divisions, excuse me, where we have the women who are playing Sunset Hills and Northwood Black.
That sounds right.
One of the Northwood one of the Northwood courses, and the men who are playing Northwood Black and Eureka. So because our resources are split as they are, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult to give you the companion broadcast. But don't quote me on that because I don't know. It turns out, something I haven't even told you, Terry, I'm back in the seat this weekend. So I will be doing the broadcast for Ledgestone.
Good thing I'm coming to you for all the questions and answers then, because clearly you're up on it.
I'm going to sit down on Thursday, probably after a meeting we have tomorrow or something, and start pushing some buttons Thursday afternoon.
All right.
I was in last week, and then I got a call that I was probably out, and then I got a call that I was probably back in. It's a crazy wild. The Pro Tour is nuts, but you know what? They're nuts just to have us in general. They're nuts to have us in general. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well.
So
nonetheless, as you can tell, Johnny V's on top of all the details, as am I. But this weekend, 4 rounds taking place, MPO and FPO. Like you said, we're going to be seeing action over at the Northwood course, and then also at Sunset and at the Eureka Temp course. And I don't know where I heard this, Johnny, and I was just looking on UDisc. Unfortunately, I can't get confirmation. This I should also get figured out in the next day or two. My understanding, somebody told me recently that it's a an ABBA format in terms of the courses that are getting played, as opposed to like ABAB or AABB. It's going to go ABBA. Have you heard the same?
I don't care. Traditionally,
that's what I heard somewhere. I'm hoping I'll somehow, hopefully, I show up to the right course on the right day. But
who knows? Traditionally, for the FPO, they played Sunset Hills back to back because I believe that the golf course usually wanted to kind of keep that grouped up, and then you can reuse the assets, move the assets somewhere else after the second round at Sunset. Then they go to another course. But I don't know, honestly. I have not heard. I could probably maybe look it up somewhere, but let's be honest.
If you know of somewhere where to look it up, that would be great. Because I went to UDisc right now, and because it's just so early in the week, it's not fully listed out there. I see information for the Finnish Nationals out there on UDisc, so make sure you're following along with that, August 3rd through the 6th. But I do not see the official information for the Ledgestone details. So hopefully, at some point, like I said, I'll figure out which course I need to be at on which given day. Either way, I guess you're sitting in the same seat regardless of what course they're at.
Correct. It doesn't matter to me where the signal comes from, as long as the signal... You can't stop the signal, as they say.
Can't stop the signal? Okay.
No, that's not how it goes.
Well...
It's a sci-fi joke.
No. I don't know. Well, okay. I mean, we all have our different ways to go about this. So, that's what's going to be taking place this weekend. I don't know. We may or may not get any additional updates. Maybe they'll my phone will blow up with some details and updates as the day goes on. I know that they have a ton of stuff scheduled for this weekend, and really this event has been no surprise in the fact that we've seen it. I don't want to say model entirely off of what we saw largely taking place over at the GBO for quite a few years, but there's a lot of similarities that have been pulled in that have helped grow this to be one of the largest attended tournaments that you see that takes place. Of course, there's the AMs and the pros that create that large attendance number, just like we saw for a number of years over at the GBO. You're seeing, I think when it's all said and done, I think there is in 10 flex starts that are going to be taking place. Let me see if I can pull up a schedule. I think there's going to be 10 different flex starts going on. There's multiple nights of Fly Mart. There's going to be tournament pro shops. There's limited release discs and signings that will take place. There's a Discraft Players Clinic at Lake Eureka with Chandler Fry and Missy Gannon. I'm reading that. I'm reading Die Academies, which is something that we've seen before. We've seen there's a CTP contest against Andrew Presnell, who we'll talk about more in a moment. Ice Cream Socials, Play with the Champs exhibition. Just constant, all these things. Virtual Poker Night, St. Jude Dunk Tank, Fly Marts, Pizza Parties, Band Performance, Escape Room, Eagles Wings Chapel Service. Just
it sounds like if
nonstop.
You're there early, there's plenty to do.
Yeah, and early and throughout the entire week. I mean, I'm reading off. I mean, some of the flex starts started in the last day or two and are continuing to happen throughout the entire week. And then I'm also seeing so many of these other things that are taking place all week long. Like I said, I believe there's 2 separate nights of Fly Marts that are taking place as well. So all of this stuff taking place all over here. I'm looking at ledgestoneopen.com. That's where you can find more information. So what really matters first, though, is we go back in time just a few days. The silver event that took place, it looks like it was an abridged one, and maybe they needed a bridge or two out there. Hey-o. We saw the silver series taking place, the Mid-America Open. Andrew Presnell, your champion in playoff fashion. Johnny, let's talk MPO first, since I already queued us up for it that way.
Certainly. Andrew Presnell brought his game, so to speak, to the Mid-America Open to win this one in a playoff with Gannon Burr. Kind of a shocking playoff if you watched it. Gannon had a 20-footer to push, and on the playoff hole, which I believe was did they play hole 18? They might have played hole 18.
No.
Or no,
I don't think that was 18.
Was it not 18? Maybe it was hole 1. Either way.
No, I think it was 3 or 4 or something.
Whatever. Either way. He had a chance to win. The funny thing is I kind of watched it out of the corner of my eye. Once I got to the playoff, I kind of sat down. And to see Gannon just yank what was more or less a 20 to 25 footer is not something that we normally see Gannon do. He's been there in those clutch positions. He knows he's one of those guys that everyone always says, you got to learn how to win. You got to learn how to win. He knows how to win. And now he knows how to choke it away as well. So Gannon just, giving this one to Presnell in the playoff was a little surprising. But congratulations to both of them. A hard-fought battle. Prez just really hung around that whole third round, got to the end of the course, and then just cleaned up on holes 14 through 18. He birdied the last 5, or Gannon only got 2 of the last 5. So it was a real fun battle to kind of keep on in the background. Third place by 3 strokes was one Kyle Klein. Fourth place was Chandler Kramer. Tied for 5th place, Joey Buckets, Joseph Anderson, and Nico Locastro. Tied for 7th, Chris Clemonade and Joel Freeman. 9th place, Cole Ridallen. And I'm not even going to bother. There's like a 5-way tie for 10th. I'm not going to count them. I don't care.
Bunch of people. Okay. Fair enough. And yes, as the board pointed out, worth noting, the playoff now that I go out to UDIS, the playoff did start on hole 1. You were right, Johnny. Okay. The par 5, hole number 1, it was 1, 2, then 3, and then on repeat would have been the playoff holes. But as you mentioned, went just the single hole. My question is, yes, Gannon missed, choked, whatever you want to call it.
He ganked a 20. He even wrote. I saw a picture on Instagram of a signature that he signed for some gentleman that more said. I think it said something like the least clutch player or something, and had it
Yeah,
signed.
something like that. So my question is, and I hate to use the word hope, but does that just maybe prove or give others hope to show that these players are still human? Like, of course, you expect Gannon to make that. We expect most of our players in most situations to step up and make that. There is a playoff that it is no longer hole 17 where it's like, oh, this could give somebody an advantage or a stroke or whatever. This is literally obviously to push the playoff. It's sudden death. So there's more pressure than any other 20-footer he really had that round. Does this just prove that no matter how good you are, you can still miss a putt?
Yeah, that definitely
I
proves
mean,
that.
I think about the expectations that we put on players, and of course they are professionals and they are the best in the world, and time again. However, I just you look at that scenario in a playoff, even with one of the literally the best player, one of the best players in the world, and yeah, just doesn't find the bottom of the bucket, and surprising to see it end in that particular fashion. That's for sure.
Yeah,
So
Stanman on our board says it was a flinchy putt. It was kind of a weird to see. I felt like he went a little faster than he normally does when I saw it.
so only 28 seconds.
He's been better, Terry Miller. Don't give the kid
All
a hard
right.
time. 26 seconds. But no, he did go a little bit faster than I think his routine normally sets up for him. Maybe that accounted for it. But
Sure.
but ultimately, like you said, human can miss these easy ones that you and I will miss regularly as well, and everyone out on our board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, us missing them, not nearly as big of a deal, but nonetheless, congratulations, Andrew. Um, Nothing like getting it done right away rather than seeing how long something like that could go. When you have two players that are on that have been dialed in pretty much throughout the weekend, you start thinking about daylight, you're thinking about the long weekend that it's been, the play, the conditions, everything else, and then to see it all wrapped up in the first hole. I guess, well, good for some, not so much for others, but
Yeah, especially on a
congratulations.
weekend that was flooded, so to speak, with weather delays and rain and thunderstorms, lightning. If you look at the MPO scores for round 2, there are no scores for 1, 2, and 3 or 18.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you to elaborate on that because I saw, again, a post on social media about an abridged course or abbreviated course. What ultimately, as you're saying there, what was the decision?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm just looking
basically
at you,
they said, basically they made an announcement at some point. Again, you and I were both busy doing other things throughout the weekend, so we weren't intimately involved. But they did make a post due to the inclement weather, due to the delays and such, that the round would not include those particular holes.
And those are the longest holes. Those are the ones that take some of the most time.
Well, and it wasn't just so much the time as I think it was the actual conditions and the rain and the flooding, which then brings up a whole other conversation that we do not need to beat to death. However, it continues to get talked about as every time we've had events here, it feels like there's been some kind of issue. In fact, this entire event was moved a few years ago as we were trying to host it. It ended up getting moved to an entirely different course because this course has a tendency, even though it's rated as one of the top courses in the world, it has a tendency that as soon as it sees as much as a raindrop, I think that it ultimately floods. And that is, another part of the conversation that was had throughout the weekend. I don't have any magic solution for that. It's, that if that's the way the course was designed, but yet it plays so great, but yet we have this threat. I don't know if there's a perfect time of year. People always say, well, I mean, if it could rain literally any time, and if rain impacts it this greatly, I don't know what you're going to do about it. Because as you and I both know, it could rain on any given weekend.
I'm thinking mid-December would be a great time. No rain.
Okay.
You're probably going to get a little snow, but I mean,
Okay,
that's
that's an option.
I do think that is one of the reasons why this course is really being held back from an Elite Series event. You I don't mind this as a silver event, but you can't count on perfect weather without some sort of backup plan. Everybody knows how this course is. Like you said, great course, unfortunate flooding issues. You can't put an Elite Series event here. You just can't. Not with these type of conditions. Not unless you plan on putting a giant tent over the course. Last time I checked, I don't think we carry that big of a tent.
Ooh. I don't know. It sounds like that is a challenge to Sean Jack. Get out there and find a potential sponsorship.
And again, if this is a
said
silver event for the rest, for the remaining future, I'm okay with that. The fact that it was cut short, that we had an abbreviated second round, whatever. I don't.
I
really
mean, of
have a
course,
big
it's
issue with
it's not ideal, and you don't want any event of any kind cut short. And as Dylan says on the board, Dylan, I was, of course, being a little hyperbolic when I said it got a raindrop. I understand. He said was definitely more than one raindrop. Was a crazy big storm. And let's be real. There's plenty of courses. I'm not trying to pick on this course in particular. There are plenty of courses that if obviously you have some crazy weather roll through, almost no matter what, you're going to have issues on the course. That's not that's not unique to this course. However, with that being said, this course is more susceptible and gets challenged by rain and the conditions more quickly than most courses. But again, when it rains, it rains.
And it's not just the
about all you
flooding,
can
although
do.
that is bad. It also gets muddy and a little bit and a little dangerous moving up and down those hills. It overall is a tough position to be in.
Yeah, and no shock. It seemed as if, again, judging by social media, it seemed as if the heat was not friendly either, pushing into the triple digits along with some Midwestern humidity. So
welcome to the summer of 2023. That's kind of the story.
And kind of the theme. So let's talk FPO, though. It looked like a great battle, including an insane start by one Alexis Mandujano. However,
she comes out and
couldn't
shoots
hold on.
Course record 9 under par that first round. Just amazing putting, phenomenal drives, as it usually takes to shoot a course record. She was crushing the field. I think she had like a 6 or 7 stroke lead on the entire field after the first round. Now, as we know, it's not unusual in FPO to see kind of some big swings depending on how certain players are playing. But Alexis, the crowd caught up. The crowd caught up after the second round. Scoggins comes out with a 7 under par, and Alexis shoots an even. Now, last year, I think the course record was like a 2 under. And so this year it was a 7 under, or I'm sorry, the 9 under.
9.
And the course played, my understanding was there was 4 different tee pads. And someone had said statistically it plays about a stroke and a half to maybe 2.5 strokes easier. So Alexis, regardless, had a phenomenal round. I think it was like a 10:30 rated round. 10:32, something along those. So can't take anything away from her at all. With that round, and a round you won't be forgotten anytime soon. But of course, then Scoggins comes out and shoots a 7. Lisa Fakis with a 5 in that second round. Holland Hanley comes out in the second round and ties the course record with a 9 down, lighting up the back 9. And then we get to round 3, and it is a tight battle going into the final hole. It looked like it was tied with Scoggins and Alexis Mandujano. Hole 18, Alexis takes a 7, which is a double bogey. Takes a par and wins by 2 strokes. So it came down to the final hole. At that point, Kat Mertsch was the next closest, sitting at 9 under par after the final 18. And then Lisa Fakis tied with that. Valerie Mandujano shoots a 1 under par with Holland Hanley. Holland, who came and shot a 2 over after shooting a 9 down. That's what this type of course can do to you. When it's wooded like this, if you're off a little bit, there are some huge swings that your score can take. So the fact that I would say Alexis and Alexis had that tough second round, but came back again with a 4 under. Relatively consistent, just seemed to get better and better. Congratulations to Scoggins on her second, I believe it's her second silver event.
That sounds about right.
It might be. I mean, I know she won the match play event a couple years ago, 2 years ago, yet last year.
Last year.
Last year,
Or was that? No, I think it was her first ever.
Is it her first ever?
Funny how much I just rely on the graphics that get posted, but I believe it was her
first ever silver.
Silver.
Okay.
Yeah, her first silver event.
I thought she had one more in the bag a couple of years ago, but
no.
obviously I'm wrong.
And again, like you said, you think about a $10,000 check that was won at the match play event last year. That can easily muddy the waters, and then she's destroying everything she does. Practically when it comes to the Masters division. So it's easy to get caught up when you see someone like her win, and you have to think about, well, what event did she win at? Just because when she's not winning, usually in the Masters division, she's taking a top spot in the FPO division. So it's, dare I say, easy to get confused. But yeah, Alexis and Holland, as you said, both with those 9 unders were the course records. And first round by Alexis, I think, was officially rated 10, unofficially still rated 1031. So,
all right. And what was Holland's second
nothing
round,
you can
then?
complain about. Holland, when she shot the same score, is rated 1021. So the course overall played a little bit easier on that second round. Therefore, her 59 was rated 1021, which, as most people would also do some of the math. You're talking about 10 points. It sounds like a ton, but it typically is roughly about 1 stroke.
And that's
anywhere from 7 to 12.
Yeah. And that could be obviously that's based on how the rest of the field plays. If the course,
correct,
if the rain and whatnot could have caused the course to play a little bit different, a little more difficult footing and whatnot, which is why that 1 9 down is better rated than another 9 down. Either way, congratulations to Owen Scoggins on her silver event win. Couldn't happen to a nicer person. I thought, I don't want to get you riled up here, Terry. I liked the trophies that they had, these little paddles. It felt slightly, again, I don't care if they were $6 paddles or $200 paddles. I like the concept. This course kind of has to me, it fits right in with the theme of a little bit of flooding and water that this course has. And I just like the unique trophies, and it's a silver event, so I don't have a high expectation on almost any event, but other than Worlds, I always want the Worlds trophies to be really cool. But for the most part, I'm fine with this.
Yeah, it was good. Seems practical. A lot of our players do things outdoors like kayaking and paddleboarding and canoeing. Maybe they'll take to it, or maybe it'll just get mounted. I'm not sure where Owen will make most use of it, but
I hope on the way to Ledgestone, Owen passes the Mondahano vehicle and takes the oar and just in her car as she's driving by is pretending to oar. It's not her style, but I still think it would be funny.
The trash talking is her style, but yeah, that would have to set up perfectly in order to make it happen. But it would be
they're all going to the same place.
Have her just exactly, just have her go on past her. It would be pretty funny. So very cool. Well, and then as the board was talking about, Owen won the the challenge at Goat Hill a couple of years ago, but I was just double checking. Was that a silver event at the time?
I don't know if that was a silver event at the time, because is that the one?
I know it's been like there, and then it's been again. It sometimes gets a little wrapped up and confusing.
It's hard to remember what is and isn't silver events these days.
Yes. Yeah, and just to think of the drama there too, like you mentioned, coming all the way down to the last hole. I mean, that being the deciding factor. They had both finished out pretty strong. Owen had gotten 3 out of the last 4 holes. Alexis had gotten 2 out of the last 4 holes. So their battle was pretty close. And then when it was all said and done, the deciding factor. So, nice work. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that jumped out at me in terms of the weekend there. The only other thing that I think about is another one of our competitors. She wasn't there, but Emily Beach has kind of officially come out and talked a little bit about her, how she had fallen earlier in the year and had hurt her hip, and how that's something that she's just basically keeping an eye on, and how she's going to try and power through it throughout the rest of the year. That was some of the other FPO news that I was thinking of as I was scrolling down this list. So she was not in this event, but very much taking into consideration where and when she's going to be playing as she's trying to close out her 2023 campaign as well.
And some MPO news that came out, I believe it was after our podcast last week. I don't remember talking about it. Paul McBeth withdrawing from the Ledgestone. He, obviously, with his shoulder injury he suffered over in Europe, he's definitely dropping out of Ledgestone, and he said he thinks it's a 3 to 4 week downtime. So my guess is we may not see him until Worlds.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a semi-Smashbox exclusive, and I hope she's okay with me sharing this. I had asked Hannah about this because we were talking about some other stuff today. She confirmed, like you just said, that he wouldn't be here for Ledgestone competitively. However, I know there was a hope that he'd still be here in a promotional aspect, and it sounds like he will be. Doing some stuff promotion-wise. Of course, plenty of fans and people want to see him and interact with him. So he better be out there spotting. That's a good call. He better be out there spotting for like, MA4 or I don't know, FA1. It doesn't matter. I want to see him out somewhere on one of the courses spotting.
I think that would
be an easy hole. Don't give him an easy hole like Sunset with a little bit of water. No, you put him out like on a difficult course like Megiddo or some of these other courses where like he has to actually like hustle around a little bit. That would be epic, and that would almost match when we saw Scott Stokely spotting at the 99 Am Worlds in Kansas City. Again, another story for another day. But Paul will be here. And he is working with Seth of Disc Golf Strong and a personal physical therapist. So they're all talking and trying to get things going. I'm just trying to paraphrase what she sent me. He does hope to be back by Worlds. He thinks that D-Glow may be too big of a course, but again, he'll likely be there from a promotional standpoint, hopefully. And she said I would describe his shoulder as angry. Things need to calm down and have a little time to repair for it. So it's not a big serious injury, but if it's not treated efficiently and cared for, it could be. So I hope that was public knowledge, Hannah. It seemed pretty much like it would be, or it could be. So that's the direct update I got literally just minutes ago. So we do seriously appreciate the additional insight.
And we do wish the best for Paul. We want to see him. We want to see him at the top of his game, especially coming into Worlds. I was picking up my son from College for Kids yesterday, and we were driving, and he was asking me something about the disc golf, and we were talking about Paul and World Championships, and he's like, doesn't Paul have like 5? I'm like, 6. And he's like, oh, okay. I said, and the other 4? He didn't take worse than second. And Mason was like, seriously? He's been in the top 10 for, I'm like, yeah, 10 years. He's like, wow. That's like really good, huh? I'm like, yeah, that's really good. So I'd like to see him be able to at least attempt to continue that streak.
Yeah. It sounds like hopefully a little rest and recovery. It doesn't sound like something I'd want to be dealing with, but clearly it's great that it can be addressed in the sense that it could be, as opposed to hearing some of our other players who have talked about surgeries and all the other things that have plagued some of our competitors throughout the year. So I guess we'll see how things go. But looking forward to seeing, and I just mentioned all of those things that are taking place this week out at Ledgestone. One of the cool things that I know is happening tomorrow afternoon, and again, if I could pull up a text or two, tomorrow afternoon, one of the big fan favorites that's been happening out here for years at this event is the chance to play with the pros that has then a charity attached to it. And if I can find the details real quick, I wanted to talk about who we're going to see. Oh, yeah, here we go. Looks like Paige Shue, who's filling in for Paige Pierce, obviously due to her injury. But Paige Shue will be in attendance along with Simon Lizotte, Matt Oram, Anthony Barella, and then also filling in from time to time, I guess, is Ben Askren. So that's all taking place tomorrow afternoon over at Sunset Hills. I think it's going to be right around 4 o'clock, shortly after the press conference wraps up. So it's the Play with the Champs. I'm going to be out there acting somewhat as an MC and trying to herd all the cats and pull out the names to match them up with those individual players. And then they go ahead and play a hole. And then when that's done, we draw new names, and then they play again. And this is all benefiting St. Jude and other charities and fundraisers as they've been doing. I think I saw on the website that this event has now put together and contributed something like $450,000 or $550,000 in charitable donations since its inception a little over 10 years ago, which is obviously insane.
It was always one of Nate's big pushes, St. Jude specifically, but I know there's been other.
Yeah, the Paul Macbeth Foundation, along with other. Yeah, there's been a handful that it's been spread out to. I believe Edge has been somewhat of a recipient, and again, if I dug around on the website, I could find them. But I think there was as many as 5 different organizations that had benefited last year alone. Pretty crazy. All right. I had something else I was going to go to right after that I'm completely spacing on.
Real quick,
let's talk a little bit.
I'd say someone did confirm it's
signal.
the ABBA. Of course, they're going to be Eureka, Northwood, Eureka, which would mean that the FPO is probably playing Northwood, Sunset, Northwood, which makes sense, as I said before, to group the two Sunset together, so that you're not spreading out the time on the golf course. I'm sure the golf course doesn't want us on and off to keep it together. So there's that. And then also someone brings up a question about the cell signal in Northwood Black. You'll have to forgive me because I don't have all of the details, but my understanding is that the Pro Tour is going to be trying something. If you're familiar with CBRS, it is like a private cell provider. So you're not like, you can literally build your own cell network. So you're not using Verizon, you're not using Sprint, you're using your own private cell network. And I believe there is some efforts to help to put those out, as we're calling them, the cheeseburgers, the CBRS cheeseburgers. That hopefully that they can help assist some of the signal in some of the early spots of Northwood Black. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen results. I haven't seen any sort of chitter-chatter about it, but that's my understanding.
I do believe that some of this was implemented. Again, these are decisions and things that are above our pay grade at the moment, but I believe some of this was used or implemented in Des Moines.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. All right. As we're with relation to that, let's move on. Another thing, and I guess this ties somewhat indirectly. Our tournament director for the weekend, of course, being Nate Heinold. Well, Nate Heinold, along with Jeff Hungerford, looks like have been both reelected to the PDGA Board of Directors. And I'm looking at that on the PDGA website on the PDGA news area. PDGA Europe Board of Directors is Krister Christensen, along with Leif Espen and Rika Salmon was also elected out of out of Finland. And then it goes on to list all the state coordinators and provincial coordinators as well. So all of those, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for anyone that does want to look at it. There is a link to it there. So Jeff Hungerford and Nate Heinold, who were already serving on the board, were essentially reelected. And then the other big note and takeaway of that, not only thank you to all of the people that, of course, put their hat in the ring, all the people that, went through the effort of campaigning and filling out the surveys and answering questions and doing additional podcasts and interviews and write-ups, all that stuff. So thank you to all of those people. Also seeing, I think the big takeaway number, though, is 14.89 is what I saw for the number. 14.89% of our
less than 15%
voting body turned out.
of our voting body. So once again, I saw somebody on one of the social medias who was upset at some of the results, and they were like, "Ugh, I'm not going to renew next year." And someone goes, "Cool, then you don't get to vote." And then and it was kind of like, "Oh yeah, that's right. You're unhappy. If you're unhappy with the result or happy with the result, I don't care either way. If you're unhappy with the result and it causes you to not renew with the PDGA, I can't help you because you're not going to be able to vote, and you're not going to be able to use your vote to make any sort of change." I do wish we could see that that number go up. I would love to see us hit 20 to 25% in the next couple of years. It just really feels like we're stuck in those teens, and we're not getting past it. And I don't know why particularly that is, if it's just that there are so many players that really don't care about the bigger picture of the sport and are more local players, that they feel like, their local elections really are the ones that affect them the most. I don't know the answer to that, but I hope that we can find a way to start to push up those numbers.
I couldn't agree more. And maybe that is just a testament. I would like to, if you're looking at it from a very optimistic standpoint, I think that's one of the ways you could pinpoint it and say is, by and large, a lot of our competitors want to just simply play, and they're not even concerning themselves with any of, I'll put in air quotes, any of the politics or any of the direction. They enjoy playing. They're probably playing in sanctioned events as one of their major member benefits. They enjoy playing. They enjoy getting a rating and having a competitive spirit, along with the rules of which are whatever they are that are laid out. And outside of that, they're just not too caught up in it. I mean,
and I think some of it is that from the voters' perspective, it's a lot of effort to go out and find out about all the candidates. I know it's really easy to vote. It's a link in your email.
I was just going to say, that's where I thought you were going.
No.
I'm like, literally, it's like 4 clicks of buttons.
I think
click,
people
click,
really
voted.
feel that it's an effort to get to know the candidates. Even though it's out there,
true.
There are campaign statements linked right into the voting block. There is the PDGA podcast that has gone out and done multiple interviews with some of the player or some of the candidates. But that is effort. If you really want to know the candidates, you're talking 5, 6, 7 hours of research. If you really want to kind of narrow it down to the people who you want to get the full picture, I can understand how daunting that might seem. But
yeah,
and it honestly, I know it sounds silly, it does feel like a lot of work for a 2-year election cycle. And compare that to our national elections, where you kind of know which side of the line you stand on, red or blue, and if you are undecided, they're throwing ads in your face. We don't get that in the PDGA. You don't go onto UDisc and see an ad with Jeff Hungerford's face out there going like, "Hey, vote for me."
I approve this message.
Jeff Hungerford isn't dropping things like, "Nate Heinold doesn't like children," "Don't vote for me," or anything like that. We don't see these type of election advertisements like you do in the national scale. So maybe it feels harder to make a decision. So a lot of people just don't, which is unfortunate, because obviously you voted, I voted. Probably most of the people on our board are good Smashies and good PDGA representatives, and hopefully they voted as well.
Yeah, and if you make it I was going to say make it your prerogative to not vote, I can accept that. I'm fine with that as well. I'm just hoping that you're not first in line to then complain. Your complaint or your suggestions ring so much louder and more clearly when you've at least also gone ahead and put forth the effort to vote. Everybody can complain, but I'm going to be far more likely to listen to somebody that's actually put in a little bit of effort and actually gone out and done the diligence of voting to back up whatever their complaint might be. Because I feel like that's the minimum you need to do is to at least cast a vote. You can complain your person didn't win or that things are going to be this way or that way or whatever, but you have to at least voice your opinion in that official capacity of putting in a vote in order for me to take you that much more seriously. So regardless, it's done. It's complete for now. And yeah, I guess first of all, congratulations. Like I said, I do appreciate anyone that puts themselves out there, win, lose, or draw. Some of these people have now, put themselves out there more than once, and it probably has to get a little bit discouraging. I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess every election, you can feel a little bit of that discouraged, no matter how many times that you've run. But yeah, when it's all said and done, thank you to all of those volunteers. I think that's another thing that gets lost in this. This is a volunteer position that is for as little return as you probably get out of it. I can understand how it doesn't seem worth it to most people to even possibly be on the board and to deal with the ridicule and everything that goes along with it. So thanks to everyone. And congrats to all the provincial and state coordinators, which exactly about half of are voted on every year. So I know, for instance, Wisconsin this year, Mike Harrington's our state coordinator now again. Next year, he's the state coordinator for 2 years, along with the other 25 or so that were listed today. And then obviously the other half are voting. So you don't have all 50 as a turnover in a given year. You have 25 per year. So, all right. People talking about loving volunteers. I know what was really interesting for me is last night, Johnny, I have daughters that are now in, I don't know, 7th and 9th grade. And so last night I went to my local school district's, we'll say, annual required sports meeting.
Oh yeah.
And to have all the parents, so to speak, in there, along with all the kids, to talk about all the sports and athletics that take place in our little community, and then to talk everything, of course, about officiating, to rules, to organizations, to physicals, and everything in between. Players' code of conduct. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had, that I thought was, I'm sure this is pretty standard across the country in many communities, and I just was trying to think about how it may apply to disc golf or not. Was something they very much drove into every single person's head multiple times last night, is that when you're a student athlete and you're in any of the programs, it said the student code of conduct is in place from that very moment, 365 days a year, 24/7. And that was just such an interesting perspective, because I was thinking about disc golf, and I was thinking about on the course, off the course, at the extracurriculars. And we have rules within the PDGA competition manual, but I was just, think how we apply that. And of course, NFL and NBA and all those guys also have their policies as to what it basically means to be a representative of either the schools or the athletic program or of a sponsor or whatever, what it means to be that representative when you're within that program, and how you are basically beholden to that code of conduct 24/7, 365. And then the other big takeaway that I thought was also interesting is another gentleman came in to speak at length about, he basically was talking about likenesses, sponsorships, and things of that nature. And obviously that landscape has changed considerably in the last few years with regard to what they're doing in colleges as opposed to what, they didn't do, a decade ago. And just really giving some warnings and adhering to saying, there's a big difference between you being recognized as the used bear, which I find hilarious and a little dating, the bear player of the week, as in like the aspirin, the bear player of the week, versus saying, I played well this week, and because I took bear, like, just, as a goofy example, talking about what that means and how strict the Wisconsin policies are when it comes to sponsorships and the use of likeness and image and things of that nature. So a couple of interesting things that clearly with social media and with the way contracts, entertainment, and everything has grown as you and I have gotten older throughout all these years, what that looks like in today's landscape versus what it did 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, and then where some of those crossovers apply to disc golf. Because you and I both know, as soon as you see a player say or do something that you maybe vehemently disagree with, or think is unbecoming or is unprofessional, how often is the first thing that said, "Oh, you know, I bet your sponsor would love that," or "I've already sent a message to your sponsor about blah blah blah." Just kind of interesting when you think about how it applies to disc golf, and some similarities that we do or don't find even at a high school sports level. Anyway, Ben says we have our national women's soccer team paid reps of our country not acknowledging the national anthem. I mean, there's all sorts of politics, and again, there's a million different ways a conversation like that could go. We're not here to necessarily have that debate, but yeah, there's a lot of different ways that it can get looked at when you're talking about, and you go all the way back to one of the most well known in recent history, obviously starting with Colin Kaepernick and everything that's taken place from there. But that, like I said, I think that's another podcast for another day.
Yeah, that's a whole discussion that we
don't and really not quite as in-depth politics as I was looking to go with my tangent. It was interesting to see what these kids are being warned of, being talked about as they're going through something like high school sports. And then you think about what they're doing in a place like Finland or some of the other really competitive places when you're seeing Hamar, for instance, Fredrickson, seeing a 14, 15, 16-year-old who's out there winning thousands of dollars, and it has multiple sponsors by multiple, disc manufacturers and otherwise. It's all quite incredible if you think about it.
A couple other little PDGA news before we get into some slightly bigger PDGA news. Competition committee is seeking new members, and there's an RFP out there for the 2024 Women's Global event. So if you're interested in hosting a Women's Global, there's an RFP out there, and for 2024.
I don't know if it might be hosting. I was going to say I would also imagine it's probably also to be part of the sponsorship program.
Yes.
For said, because there's going to be hopefully hundreds of women's global events taking place, and then I know they're looking for sponsors that might want to contribute.
Prizes, trophies, players pack items, other items, things like that. So to get the RFP. Yep. And then we can talk real quick about some of the PDGA news that made a little bit of, I don't say waves yesterday or today. Well, the proposed rule changes for 2024. I looked over these, and to me, there's not any huge changes, in my opinion, at least. A couple of the big ones.
Okay.
Moving obstacles. The players discussed with the committee about, I think, clearing out space behind their lie for run-ups. That's now allowed. I know there was always these talks of players laying down and trying to clean the footing. Now they can, without any sort of goofy loopholes, just clear out a run-up spot. Scoring, everyone in your group is now required to keep score.
What?
All the peeps. Not just 2, as we had before, but 4. And it can be digital or analog scoring. The TD is required to provide a scorecard. Now, that could be a digital scorecard. It doesn't have to be a physical scorecard. So the TD can basically
bringing the cheeseburgers out there and providing internet.
Yeah. My recommendation is if you're a regular tournament player, grab 5 or 6 blank scorecards. Because if the TD doesn't necessarily provide a scorecard, and I've been guilty of this. The last time, the last event at Stevens Rock Standing Rocks that I played. Stevens Point Standing Rocks. My phone broke the night before the round. I had no way to
Yeah,
digitally keep score.
yeah,
It had
yeah. You
locked
and
up.
all. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Exactly. And so if I literally felt bad because I kept score the first day, and then the second day I couldn't keep digital score. So I did keep my own score on a piece of paper that I actually just ended up throwing away recently, and I couldn't keep score the third day, or was it 3 day? I think it was just maybe 2 day. Anyway, I couldn't keep score for the rounds other than the first round, and so I
Yes.
felt really bad, honestly. But which is why you keep a scorecard so you can do it analog and not go against the rules anymore. And because there's always players that don't want to necessarily keep score, now they have to. Other things that
Yeah.
we see are player eligibility. You now need to be a PDGA member to sign up for a C tier. And I saw a lot of griping about this, like, oh, PDGA, blah, blah, blah. They created a new D tier. So in response to the C tier option, you can still have a D tier, which is now more or less our new C tiers, where you don't need to be a PDGA member to play in the D tier. And
now, if I recall, again, only because of some of the postings, it seemed as if the challenge to that, though, for the D tier was that it can only be one round.
I believe that's true.
And so, of course, that you think about flex starts, you think about smaller tournaments, entry level tournaments, and this is just a no win situation in the sense that people are constantly talking about, why do I pay $50 or $75, wherever the amount is for your membership? Why do I pay that? Where's the benefit to that? And they talk about ratings, then talk about certain standards that are going to be then adhered to at tournaments. All of those other types of things that go along with your member benefits. If you first sign up, then you're getting a disc with your stuff, you're getting the magazine, so on and so forth. Now, the PDGA, which, by the way, this has happened before. The PDGA is coming and saying, hey, if you're a member of the organization, you are eligible to play in our sanctioned tournaments. And if you're not a member, you don't have that right, so to speak, or that privilege. You don't have that temporary privilege to do so. And I remember something like this was introduced many years ago. And it also talked about possibly if there was essentially a non-sanction, or I'm sorry, a non-member signed up and a member looking to sign up, it was taking precedence of the member unless the non-member became a member. So essentially you had to be a member or you were in threat of getting kicked out of being able to play in the tournament. That was pulled back almost immediately. It was a very different logistical world, technology, so on and so forth. Everything was very different, but that was actually pulled back. But that eventually or essentially was saying you need to be a member to play in the event. Now here they are all these years later reintroducing it, and some people are really frustrated with it. And I guess I think it's a half full, half empty scenario. Like, I look at it as saying, I'm paying to be in the PDGA. I'm a current member, and let's just take an extreme scenario. You could go to a tournament that maybe offers 72 spots, and how pissed off, for lack of a better term, how pissed off are you when out of 72 spots, you're like looking down the list, you're looking, and 28 of them are non-members, and you want your three buddies to play who normally play in tournaments, and you're looking and saying, well, wait a minute, what's the point of being a member if they can't even get into this tournament? Now, clearly, this isn't going to be some magic silver bullet that's going to end all divisional caps, and it's not going to end all, overall entry caps to tournaments, and it's not going to please everybody, but it's giving you that nod as a tournament player as a current member, to have a further eligibility to be able to play in a tournament when somebody else who's just coming in off the street can't necessarily. And then you could turn around and flip that argument. You could say that same argument clearly with a different tone and say, hey, now we're gatekeeping some brand new players that might otherwise want to come dip their toe in the water. And I hear that argument and I understand that argument. And of course, I'm a big fan of introducing new people to the game, but I feel like the benefit outweighs the cost in that sense. If somebody doesn't, I don't think it's absurd to tell someone if they've never played in a tournament before, hey, just so you know, the entry fee for this tournament's $40 to play in an amateur. Let's just say you're an amateur and it's $40. You're going to get a bunch of stuff. However, you have to be a PDGA member to play. If you just word it that way, and they know nothing else about disc golf or any outside influence beyond that, I don't think that sounds absurd. It doesn't sound crazy at all. Like, I guess the small stint I had in playing, we'll say in racquetball when I was playing with some friends, and then I wanted to look into a racquetball tournament. If I wanted to go play in a racquetball tournament and I showed up and they're like, hey, you can't just step on and play, you've never played in a tournament before, you want to get in the low level or an entry level position and you want to play in this first tournament. Well, this is, I don't know, official racquetball sanctioned, and there's a $20 or $40 or $100 fee to that. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I wouldn't even bat an eye. I would expect that. So I don't know. I get it. There's a lot of people that really are saying this is gatekeeping brand new people from possibly playing in tournaments. I understand that argument as a guy who's run hundreds of tournaments, but I also feel like the benefit to the current members outweighs the gatekeeping, so to speak, that you think that would happen to the brand new member. What do you think, Johnny?
I agree with all of that. Again, I can understand people complaining about the gatekeeping. I'll be curious to see how many D-tier events we see. It really is probably going to depend on your area of the country. If your C tiers are filling up with PDGA players, maybe you guys need to have D tiers in place. If they're not filling up with PDGA members, do you even need D tiers? I mean, I think every location could probably stand to have some D tiers just to bring in new players, but you can sign up for the PDGA on the spot. I know it's expensive to tell somebody you have to do that to play an event, but I don't know. You need to stop moving around, Terra Bear. Keep shifting keep shifting your picture up and down.
Am I moving closer like this?
It's like up and down. Suddenly you're like way up to the top and then down. Then your chin's underneath the thing.
I was leaning forward like this.
But I mean, sorry. Obviously, you need to just look at your local area and determine whether or not there is a lot of amateurs. I say amateurs, a lot of non-PDGA members that want to play. And you could probably tell that by looking at the last year's worth of events. How many are not PDGA members that sign up for C tiers? Because there could be a market there for D tiers. I don't know. I'm a PDGA member. I'm not really going to concern myself with it too much.
Yeah, I guess I think of why aren't these people, and here again, you can think of pros and cons on both sides. Some people will say, well, I really love this because then someone who just shows up to a tournament can't quote unquote sandbag. They'll have to be a current member. Mm-hmm. They'll have to show up. Well, unfortunately, they could still sandbag if you think about it, because you could have a guy who's played literally for 10 years. He's the best guy in your entire city. He's just never signed up for a tournament. And if he becomes a PDGA member and if he goes and signs up for his very first tournament, he won't have a rating yet. He or she won't have a rating. So they, in theory, could sandbag their very first event if they are checking all those boxes. That's a pretty rare situation. And even if they did, great. Joe Schmo just won MA3 and now has a 982 rating. So Joe Schmo now will no longer be able to play in MA3. Like, it solves itself pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying, though, is some people are really excited overall that this will force somebody to have a membership, which will then eventually get them a rating, which then means, hey, when you're Joe Schmo and you won MA3 and you shot 2,000 rated rounds, and the next week when you show up to the next event and you weren't a member and you wanted to shoot either MA3 or MA2, now somebody could back it up and be like, whoa, you're not eligible for those, whereas they could possibly. But again, how many people are gaming that system in the first place is my first question.
Probably, I could probably count the number on
like 10?
10
in the country?
On one or both my hands around the country. Okay.
And if they are, okay. But
yeah.
now at least this will force everyone to then have a rating, have their name, have their rating, and more importantly, maybe it provides a little bit of background to Joe Schmo signs up for the tournament, plays in the tournament, and we find out Joe Schmo maybe isn't really a legitimate, I'll say good apple. It shows up, doesn't want to play by any of the rules, does certain things that are very unbecoming and or against the rules. And now there's an actual policy in place that is easily enforceable to say, hey, Joe Schmo got DQ'd or is no longer eligible or has now been suspended for 6 months or 12 months or whatever from PDGA play. Like there's just more of a trail and a little more officiality to all of that. So I guess those could be some of the other benefits, so to speak, as well, depending on how you want to look at it.
And going along with the more professionalization of C tiers, no longer can you mix divisions with C tiers. Not that we probably saw that a lot, but it's not allowed. It is allowed in D tiers, but not allowed in C tiers.
Anything goes at the D tier.
Anything goes at the D tier. That's right. Pace of play is going to be enforced by group now as well. If your group is going slow, they can put you on the clock, and there's a whole description of what on the clock is. If you look at again, these are not official changes. These are proposed changes, so everybody just simmer down.
What happens from here? Do you know? Like as they continue, I think I've seen a few feedback links offered up because people have been very, very vocal about a lot of this. Both for and against some of these proposed rule changes. Is it exactly that where they take feedback for X amount of days or weeks, and then some of this gets implemented and some of it gets skipped, or how does that work?
I believe they're taking feedback on it, and if they'll probably have another meeting after a bunch of feedback is submitted, and they will either finalize these and they will go into next year's rulebook.
At the very end, and I'll post this also in the comments, it just says, again, and this is in bold, email your comments and recommendations regarding the proposed rules changes below to rules-feedback@pdga.com by August 15th, 2023. Where the replies will be read, considered, and cataloged. Thank you for reading, and thanks in advance for sharing your feedback. All right. I mean, there again, it's your opportunity. Like, you can complain on the internet. You may or may not do that regardless, but take the steps, hopefully in a polite and professional manner, whether you agree or disagree. And I'll go as far as saying, even if you agree, rather than being silent about it, send the email. Say, hey, I love these changes. I am all in favor of this proposed, rule change A, B, C, or D, or whatever. Send some feedback. And as I said, it'll be read, considered, and cataloged.
Yep. And the final PDGA
I don't know what more you want.
Is what we can dub another, maybe, Steve Dodge rule. Last year for MVP, he wanted an aggregated playoff, which means, a three-hole playoff. And
regardless of what happens on the first hole or the second hole, so on, right?
Correct. You keep score for 3 holes or 2 holes or whatever the designated. This is now allowed, but last year it wasn't. They could not get a last-minute approval from the PDGA, I believe, for MVP. And now it is in the rule books that it is up to the tournament director. I'm assuming the same playoff rules apply. You need to notify everybody ahead of time. It needs to be blah, 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 all that other good stuff. But it is now available, and then after the set designated number of holes, it goes to then a sudden death playoff. So, like Steve Dodge, I think, wanted to play 1-17-18 last year. And it makes a lot of sense because for a place like Maple Hill, hole 1 is great. It's a great hole. But for a playoff, not everybody's walking down there to hole 1 in a little tiny green. And it makes more sense to finish it on hole 18. Now, granted, like we said, you could just play hole 18. But hole 18, again, I know this is with the way our players throw today with the forehand and backhand, it is a lefty favorable hole. So if you went up, or forehand favorable, if you went up, if James Conrad is going up against Ricky Wysocki, I give the advantage to Ricky, who can just fling a forehand into that green, where James has got to probably bend a backhand there, or maybe lay up. There are advantages to being to the hole for certain players. Having an aggregate helps reduce those advantages. Now, you could get 3 straight lefty holes, and Chris Clemens would love it. Anything can happen depending on the course. You would hope that the TD has thought all this through if they're doing an aggregate playoff. But it also lets the event end on hole 18. Because for Maple Hill, I believe the playoff hole has been hole 1 in the past. We've seen it hole 1. I think we've seen it hole 18. I think we've seen both, actually.
It might be 1. Last year, it might have been, wasn't it 1 then 18, or 1 and 18 on repeat or something like that? But
but either way, now
because I mean, you have to think, like you said,
that the playoff holes finishes, in theory, on 18. Or at least the aggregate portion of it. If it's a playoff, if it continues after that, too bad. Especially with what we have these days with our spectators. The spectators want to see someone finishing up, and the playoff holes don't always accommodate that. We saw at the tour finale last year, everybody on 18, then what happened? It was people were lining up in different spots after when it went to a playoff. That it can get messy. It can get definitely messy when you have a lot of spectators who want to see the final thing. So this is good in that aspect. Some events may not change, but I know for a fact MVP next year probably will. They might even this year, if they thought ahead of time and got a PDGA exemption. My guess is that Steve probably did.
Well, so here's what I'll ask to the board. And yes, John Johnson, we see you, pal. You're just about to ban you. What I'll ask to the board right now is just straw poll. Do you like the idea of an aggregate playoff? Or do we keep it, I'll use the term traditional in the sense, or common, that we continue with sudden death playoffs? So that's the question, folks. I think I could probably even do a poll, but I'm not going to go that fancy. Just tell me in the chat, do you like the idea of an aggregate playoff? It does feel so heartbreaking when you think, I was there for the 2014 Worlds, and you're watching one of the greatest playoffs of all time between Macbeth and Wysocki, and all I'm thinking is, like, don't let like a 10-foot spit through, and they put on a show. They put on one of the greatest shows of all time for the way that went down, just as Barry and Kenny did at the USDGC when that went 10 holes. However, sometimes when crazy stuff happens, and we've talked, extensively about spit outs and cut throughs and all that stuff in the last few podcasts, you just don't want to see something heartbreaking of that nature. Somebody can miss a putt, sure, a 30 or 40 footer or whatever. But then you think of some of the quirkier things that can happen. And you just think, well, maybe an aggregate playoff, it clearly doesn't, mitigate or erase or completely dismiss anything crazy from happening, but it may somewhat lighten something wild of that nature. I don't know. I'm curious to know what people think of it as I'm looking at the chat. 3 holes if tied. 3 holes if still tied, then sudden death.
Correct. That's that is the standard policy as of right now. And as everyone says, this is great for majors. We don't want to see this at B and C tiers. B and C tiers, please, please keep it sudden death. Nobody wants.
I don't know. Bob says, I think 3 holes at MVP is okay. Up to 6 holes at a C tier sounds terrible. I don't disagree with you. Could you just imagine, like, it's a tiny C tier. I had a $30 entry. There's 9 players in the field, and there's a 3-way tie, and then they have to go and play like a 4 or 5 hole. Yeah, that would be a little bit silly. D tiers have to play another round for ties. Someone had suggested. So, yeah, I don't know. I like it's just option. That I know it's called sudden death. It's always been so heartbreaking to me to watch things unfold. And you look at a Corey Ellis, who of course was out. No one's denying that, but out by a millimeter or a centimeter or less, which would be a millimeter, just barely out, at Deglow last year. Not saying he deserved to be in to then extend a playoff necessarily. Of course, it still requires him to throw good shots, as all playoffs would. But yeah, it can get very heartbreaking out there. So I don't know. Interesting to see who will apply it, who wants to use it, and then here's the big question: as we were just talking about B and C tiers, does it get overused? Does it become somehow? Does it wear itself out? What if we just have 5 Elite Series events the rest of this year? And I don't think they apply to this year, but let's just say we did. All 5 of them come down to an aggregate playoff with 3 holes. Does that get exhausting? And does that really, let's take it a step farther? I don't mean like physically exhausting. I just mean like does it hit different? And then take a step farther. What happens when, again, just logistically, FPO does it, because FPO extends that extends everything in the morning, and you're on a tight turnaround. And not that MPO is more important, but I'm just saying we have a tight turnaround usually from an FPO broadcast to conclude, and then an MPO broadcast to start back up or to start up for the day. And if those ever reverse, same scenario. But then you're looking. There's just logistically, yeah, my mind starts to really run wild with things that could then happen from this. So I guess we'll see.
Ultimately,
Dustin
be up to the TD.
Says, I'm down for it. Playoffs are the most exciting thing in disc golf. Make it longer. And then Mike says, playoffs aren't that common. I'd say let those special occasions play out.
Are playoffs exciting because it's sudden? Because right now we have sudden death, one and done. Like, does that raise it? So is the excitement level lowered with an aggregate playoff where you're thinking, okay, cool, Kelvin just got 2 strokes in the first 2 holes. This last hole, Kelvin's got to take a 5, and the other guy's got to get a birdie to win. Does that eliminate some of the excitement going into the 3rd hole? It's very possible.
Yeah, or I was just going to use a crazy example. I think ahead to Idlewild, right? Idlewild, the long par 4. It's not crazy that somebody eagles that. You go into a playoff there, which we've seen a few, by the way. You go to a playoff there, hole 1 at Idlewild. Kyle Klein puts it all the way down there. He parks it. He eagles it. Somebody hits his competitor, hits the pedestal a couple times. Rollaways. Kyle's taking the 2. The competitor he's playing against takes the 5 or the 6. And then you just think like, okay, well, this feels kind of like it's done now.
Yeah, now I have to sit through 2 more holes of him walking with it. I agree. I like the concept of the aggregate for more fairness, but it could definitely eliminate some of the excitement coming down to the final portion. We'll see. We have to experiment. That scenario might not play out for a few years.
Yeah. Anyway, all interesting to see, as you were saying, what could happen. And I did get clarification last week when we were talking about the cut for the European Open. I had stated that I didn't like that they didn't cut to the cash line.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time we were done pandering around that conversation or wandering around within it, I had said I also realized that often at international events, they are essentially held to slightly different standards. And maybe that's not, there's a different rule book, so to speak.
We said that.
And that's what I wanted to reiterate. That was exactly the case. There was nothing nefarious or crazy or whatever. It's just they were, in fact, playing by the international guidelines and rules that are available to them. So I just wanted to make clear on that as I got confirmation of it as well shortly after the show. So it was worth, in my opinion, to follow up and make sure everybody knows that. Also, I mean, if we're doing PSAs, another thing that I just got released yesterday, the day before, bonus footage from the Masters Worlds. It's definitely worth talking about in the sense that it was the MP40 chase card. MP40 lead card was out. This chase card did some work. And it gives you really just another taste, and it gives you 4 more players to watch. Martin Hendel from Canada, who was second last year, runner-up to Joe Revere. He's on the card. Dave Felberg was on the card. Steve Rico was on the card. And then a Flagstaff local, Joshua Johnson, was on the card. So I think I added up nearly 350 wins among those 4 guys. Yeah, so some great golf, some couple of legends of the game, especially in Rico and Felberg. So I wanted everybody to know that's out there and that is available to watch as well. It's on my channel. So if you've been clamoring for that MP40 action, there's more on the channel.
One other thing that could have bigger repercussions with the rule changes that I guess we got to talk about it every week, it feels like. A tiers are required to offer MPO and FPO divisions, which means they are, as we know, the transgender athletes are allowed to play in A tiers. A tournament director cannot cut out the FPO division for any particular reason, assuming it's an A tier. So that's just, I don't think we necessarily saw much of that, but it is maybe heading off an issue that could happen in the future. So just
it
be
definitely
aware.
has happened, and I know there's at least 2 events I've seen publicly post about it. I know we were talking about one in Kentucky. I feel like
was that an A
weeks
tier?
or a few months ago.
I know it was a state championship. I couldn't remember if it was an A tier or not.
I do not recall. You might be right that it wasn't, but I think it was. And then I think I also saw another event recently post saying that they're not planning on offering FPO as their, somewhat as their response, worried about lawsuits and other things. So that's an interesting. I hate that I keep saying the word interesting on it, but we'll see how that's going to unfold and what that's going to mean, if anything, for competitors, moving into 2024 when these events are they as in those events are all required to be offering those divisions. And then I feel like there was even an additional step that I saw someone posting about needing to offer the quote unquote highest level of amateur division as well at certain events.
Well,
did I read that correctly?
Pro only A tiers must offer MPO and FPO. AM only A tiers must offer MA1, FA1. Pro Am A tiers must offer MPO, FPO, MA1, FA1. So what we just talked about. Masters only A tiers must offer MP and FP40, MA40, and FA40. Gender-based A tiers must offer FPO and FA1. So if it's a women's only event, you have to offer FPO and FA1. And junior-only A tiers must offer MJ18 and FJ18, which is your highest amount, and anyone under the age of 18 can play that. So you can't. What they're doing is they're stopping. They're preventing someone from saying, "Oh, I know," and I know it sounds silly, but there's a transgender athlete who's 17. I'm not going to offer the 18 and under. I'm only going to offer 16 and under, and then they can't play. By offering the highest level, everybody under that can play has a legitimate division to play in. So if you want to call that the highest tier, so to speak, that is one way to put it, or the highest division at these tiers. That is one way to put it. And I think this is a good change. This forces the hand of TDs. If they want to run an A tier, which is a PDGA prestigious event, then you need to offer all divisions. You need to have not all divisions. You need to offer a division for all people. We'll say that.
Well, here's I think the one that was brought to my attention was specifically in reference to, if you could reread the PDGA A tier for Masters divisions, saying that if you have to offer MA40 and FA40 on a Pro Masters A tier?
On a Masters only A tier.
Okay.
You have to offer MP40, FP40, MA40, and FA40. Because we know if you're 50 years old, you can play in the 40-year-old division. So by offering the 40-year-old division, everybody has a division that they can technically play in.
And here's my point. What I don't necessarily understand about that is, what if you want to run a pro only Masters A tier?
Roll. So
Now there's no such thing, because you're essentially forced to offer FA40 and MA40 as well, per that what you just read. Am I reading that correctly?
technically that could be that's what it says. Masters only A tiers must offer MP, FP, MA, and FA40. So yeah, I mean that maybe that's a designation. Maybe they've thought of that. Maybe it's something that they hadn't thought of. If you only wanted a pro only Masters event, for instance, like what
or
Callie
an AM
McMorran-
only.
Yeah, or an AM only. If that's something.
See, I don't know that I like that.
I'm with you. I can understand why you wouldn't necessarily like that. Maybe you have an email, Terry. You know the email to send your complaint to at the very bottom.
It's
maybe
feedback,
ask,
Johnny. It's not a complaint.
It's feedback. You're right.
I'm
sorry.
I'll admit. I'll let me be really transparent here. This was brought to my attention because I saw a post by J. Ray Jonathan, who runs events all over. One of his most successful and well-attended and well-known events that he's part of every year is the Masters at Bud Hill. They've done a phenomenal job with it. Nothing but hats off from everything I've ever seen, read, heard about it. When he made a post and it kind of brought this to light, brought it to my attention, that's where I saw it. I was thinking, and he said, we typically I don't think they typically offer those divisions. And I think about course constraints. I think about just overall divisional constraints. If you've built up a very, very successful pro only or AM only, whatever it is, when you build up a very successful event, and that's kind of the niche market that you're in, and now it sounds as if I'm again reading this correctly or hearing this correctly, it sounds as if you're then essentially forced to offer these other divisions that maybe are outside of the scope, because you and I both know a course that an MP40 player is on versus a course that is appropriate for an FA40 player can be wildly different. You're talking about 200 player rating points.
Is this something
maybe more?
Maybe come next year or maybe later this year, we'll bring someone from the PDGA on. Is this something that the PDGA wants? Do they want to look at their A tiers and say, no, A tiers shouldn't be just this or just that. We want them. They have no problem if you do this and you call it a B tier.
Sure.
All the same added cash.
That could be part of the philosophy. Sure.
It could be some of the philosophy, as I said, that they're looking at these A tiers as specific events that they want to make sure are inclusive of all. Maybe there's going to be new requirements for A tiers, as far as, even though they're not listed in here.
No, I don't think they're changing them for 2024 right now. I think I did see that as well.
I don't believe they are either. But
yeah.
So it's an interesting.
Yeah, as you.
Maybe they can. Yeah, they can push that out into, rather than just label that as just D. Maybe make that D and E, and then push everything down and say, pro only Masters A tiers must offer MP40, AM only must offer, and then Masters only. Because you could have, I can see a reason to have a pro only Masters event or an AM only Masters event. I 100% could see that as a reason and make it an A tier. I don't think you necessarily need to offer amateur division. You shouldn't be forced to offer amateur divisions unless the PDGA is moving that way. If they truly say, no, if you're running an A tier, you need to offer those divisions. But they're not doing it in pro, because you can do a pro only A tier with MPO and FPO, and you can do an AM only A tier. So I don't know why you couldn't do a Masters only with pro or AM. So maybe this will get updated. Hopefully, the PDGA, we know that we've got some people that we know at the PDGA.
Well, listen, as you said, and I had originally thought about it even prior to tonight's show, that yes, we'll soon have a representative of the PDGA on it. There's obviously a ton of different people we could pull from, depending, especially the area of expertise and or what we're largely trying to address. But we'll probably have some PDGA representation on the show here sometime soon. And then if we have a list of questions, we can add to it. So
Masters matter,
yeah.
PDGA. Masters matter, all right?
He knows more than me. I mean, all that content that you guys are not all consuming on my channel, but you should. Go out there and get it.
Don't beg for views. It's beneath you.
It's very unbecoming of me. I don't know. I think they should be watching. All right, Johnny, I don't have anything else here for our regular show. I know it's a little bit on the short side, but I think that's all right. I'm a little bit on the short side.
I know.
You got anything else we need to discuss here in the regular show?
I don't believe there is. I think we kind of covered all the major things that happened this past week. It was kind of a slow week, as we know, a lot of players traveling back from Europe, just getting to where they need to go, getting their vehicles again to get to Ledgestone so that they can, or, Peoria area, so they can get ready for our next run of A-tier events. Or I'm sorry, Elite Series events, not A-tier. We were talking about A-tier for so much.
Elite Plus, playoffs.
Well, I'm just thinking, yeah, I mean, I suppose because Ledgestone is, we have Ledgestone and Deglo are the next. Well, Deglo is a playoff event. So this is the last Elite Plus event. And then we go to.
But next week's just Elite.
Next week's just Elite, and then it's Elite Playoff.
I don't know how anybody would be confused.
And don't forget Unified.
That as well. And because somebody also brought it up, since we did kind of skip over a bunch of the other A-tiers that were taking place, certainly of note, congratulations, none other than Luke Humphreys taking it down over there at Yarva. And I hope that everyone, I'll admit, I have not played Yarva. I don't believe I can continue to call myself the disc golf guy without getting to one of the greatest courses of all time, as many have called it. But Luke Humphreys, your champion over there at the Yarva Open, powered by Prodigy. He took down his teammate, and Isaac Robinson. He took him down by 3. So congrats to Luke. Certainly a very special feather in your cap. Getting a win anywhere is great. Getting an international win is great. Getting an international win at one of the most highly respected and regarded courses in the world, I think, is even that much cooler. So it is certainly worth noting. So congratulations. And on the FPO side of things, I am just looking for the first time. I apologize. Olivia Kinstedt was your champion there. She won by 4 over Sophie and Annalie.
And then moving over to the Elan Open presented by Discmania, we'll just briefly talk about Miro Rainen wins this, shooting 34 under. I believe he's unsponsored. I don't believe he has a major disc manufacturer as a sponsor. He beat Nicholas Antala and Eagle McMahon and Oyvind James.
You think he needs a sponsorship?
I'm just saying, you rack up, he's a 1,006 rated player who just shot 1,053, 1,059, and 1,071 to beat arguably 2 of the top 10 players in the world with Antala and Eagle McMahon. Some disc manufacturer may want to ring-a-ding-ding that guy. Just,
I don't know.
Just make it known. And then over on the
As they're saying on the board, a 19-year-old that went bogey-free to beat him, unsponsored. I mean, you add up, what are the odds of all that? Pretty incredible.
Well, over in Europe, probably pretty good these days. A really young guy who just shows up out of nowhere, unsponsored, and decides to beat everybody. I would give that a higher percentage over in Europe than here in the United States. The FPO field, Silva Saarinen wins this in a playoff over Heidi Laine. Did I pronounce it that time right, Terry?
Heidi Laine.
Heidi, right? Heidi Laine. Heidi Laine.
Heidi Laine.
Yep. They both shot 9 under par, and to go to a playoff where Silva takes this one down. And third place was Jenny Karppinen. So congratulations to Silva, who wins again. She's dominant over. She's, I believe, the first player to win 4 or 5 Euro Tour events since Kristen Tatar did it.
Yeah,
a couple years ago. So that's a pretty good pedigree.
I have not had a chance to watch a ton of her play, but the other night when I was doing some editing, I had that event on, and I watched, I want to say, the first 6 holes. I think she went 4 under in the first 5. I'm like, holy shit. Like she was unstoppable. I mean, she was throwing great drives, great putts. And I know I'm not, I'm late to the party in stating all this, but it was one of my first times really getting a chance to watch her golf, and I was just like, and very European, of course, in that, she'd can a big long putt, and it was no big deal. Just business as usual. Retrieved it calmly, peacefully. Just on to the next one.
She's
Which she'd
good.
make another good putt.
She's not quite great yet, but she's making her way there. She's only 936 rated, but she's been shooting a lot of 950, 960 rated rounds. So I think we're going to see her PDGA rating start to jump up or hop up or crawl up, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be improving over the next couple months. And she might be someone who maybe next year, if she keeps this up, it might be to her maybe in best financial interest, who knows, depending on sponsorship, to come over to play the Pro Tour events. We'll see.
Yeah, she's been here for a few events earlier in the year, and she did not, wow us as much as she has, on her home turf, so to speak. But
no, it was I
that
think her
might
first
all be
time,
part of this learning process. Yeah, exactly.
It was her first time in the U.S., and she took 21st at Music City Open, 12th at the Blue Ridge, 32nd at the Champions Cup, and 21st in Jonesboro. When then she hopped over to Europe and she started taking 5th, 3rd, 1st, 3rd. So she's getting better. We've seen that with a couple Europeans, not just the women, but the men as well. The first time they come over to the U.S., it's a whole change. It takes a while to get accommodations. It takes a while to understand the lifestyle of touring the United States, which is a much bigger area than I think what they're used to in Europe. These 4 to 8 to 12-hour drives that you have to undertake and a pretty quick turnaround. So it can be a lifestyle change that takes a while to get used to. So we'll see. Maybe she's going to look at the Euro Tour events, which are improving, and the EPT, and say, hey, I can just make money here. We're going to Kristen Tatar, let me help pay for a plane ticket. You go over there. I will stay here and handle things at home. I'll be the Estonian wonder here.
Yeah. Well, it will be very exciting to see it all play out and where she picks and chooses which event she's at, and her, basically the rest of her career path in that sense. Lots of options on the table.
I'm sorry, Silva is from Finland, so my bad.
All right. Well, with that, I think we can call it on our regular show here. We will stand down for just a few minutes, and then we'll come back. We'll have the after show. In the after show, we always have a giveaway. I've been sending some additional giveaways out over the last few weeks. Hopefully, if you've been waiting for some, they have been showing up. I know 1 or 2 of them that went international in the last 2 weeks. Well, those are going to take a little bit longer, but they know that they're on the way, so that's good as well. I know one went to Australia, and I believe the other one went to Germany or Finland recently. Either way, they are on their long journey for some of our favorite Smashies from around the world. So with that, we're going to call it. This is the regular show. We're so thankful for you guys joining us here tonight. Talk a little bit about what's going on. Also, what we'll see here for Ledgestone. Next week, we'll likely have a Ledgestone winner or 2 on to talk a little bit more. Congratulations to our champions over at the elite event this last weekend, the Mid-America Open. Of course, Owen Scoggins getting the work done. And then in overtime, we see the incredible effort by Andrew Presnell holding back the superstar Gannon Burr. So congrats to them yet again. That's everything from me here in the Peoria area. Johnny V's there in Milwaukee. We'll have a quick break, and we'll be back for the after show. We'll see you then. You step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 465's After
Show.
Oh, nailed it. Little tidbit. Apparently, upon replay of an Instagram story this weekend, I think it's reasonable to say I should not be doing karaoke of any kind, and I do not apparently sing well with Belle Biv DeVoe.
Now, that girl was Poison. Poison.
Yeah.
Poison.
Yeah.
And was she driving you out of your mind? Was it hard for you to find?
That's why it's hard for me to find. Can't get it out of my head.
Did you miss her? Kiss her? Love her?
Love her. Anyway, yeah.
Terry, don't let people put a rain cloud over your head. You sing when you feel.
And quite honestly, no one did. To be honest, no one did. But when I reassessed, I was like, whoa, that ain't good. But I don't think that really matters.
It doesn't matter, Terry.
Yeah, as they're saying on the board, let us decide. Let's hear it. Well, no, it was out on the Instagrams this weekend. Speaking of some recent stuff over the weekend, a lot of hubbub, and this could have been talked about in the regular show. More hubbub, because that's the official cool term for kids these days, was a lot of Brixton card updates and postings and excitement around. I mean, you're seeing Brixton cards flying around everywhere. And now I guess the very first question I have, Johnny, is where in the world do the values set and come from now? Because
I don't know.
To quote Aladdin, right? This is a whole new world. Or not.
I guess, yeah. I just showed the earlier edition, the 2022 one, and then even though it's labeled 2022, it obviously came out recently, 2023. I did an opening of 2 boxes. Got some cool signatures. I got 2 Evelina Salonen signatures. I got 2 signatures for the bazooka, one of which was with Nicholas Antala. I got a separate one for Albert Tom. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I was really hoping, I know this maybe sound a little conceited. I was really hoping to
You were hoping to get one of me.
I was hoping to pull a Johnny V card. I'm not going to lie. I did not.
You would.
I saw a few people pull some Terry Miller cards. I saw there was somebody that got the one he posted in one of the forums. I saw the 1-of-1 Johnny V card that came in the gold packet. It's some gentleman was lucky enough to have it. So,
wow.
What do you do? You know, I got a 1-of-1 Rebecca Cox card that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got one more box coming. I opened 2. I've got one more. I'll keep it sealed, drop it right in this little bin here with all my other disc golf cards that are kind of floating around in there. And yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah,
I don't know how you set values on them, though.
That's what I mean. Like, it's a legitimate question. We've seen disc golf cards happen over the last decade. Topps has had sets, lots of different sets. Leaf, there's been a lot of different major card manufacturers that have had dipped their toes in some capacity into disc golf figures. So that's not entirely new in that set. Obviously, Brixton going about it in an entirely all-in sort of way. And then, of course, the partnership with the Pro Tour and the officially licensed cards, all the autographs, whatever, and all of the cards that are available. I mean, just this huge quantity of cards that I haven't fully consumed what's all there and what's not. However, the question for me just is where, and of course the Disc Golf Pro Tour has had their own cards for quite a few years, which I have a lot of. The real question for me just is where in the world do the prices get set? Whether it's a 1-of-1 or a quote-unquote common or whatever you want to call it, I don't care. Like where, how and where outside of just purely making it up and somebody then going with it, where do these cards get their prices set?
It's worth don't what you say it's worth willing to pay for it, Terry. Because it's
correct.
Because these
ultimately,
boxes,
yes.
The box. Figure this: this sounds so dumb. A box is $150. Each box comes with 5 packs. Each pack comes with 5 cards. There's 25 cards in there. How much is each card worth?
Well,
in theory,
150 divided by 25. So $6 a card.
So a base
minimum
level of $6 a card, or maybe a little lower because you're guaranteed signatures and stuff like that. I know that there are a few people that are looking to create like a spreadsheet, maybe kind of have a Beckett, a spreadsheet Beckett to see what things are going for. So because we don't know, obviously my 1/1, my Rebecca Cox unsigned 1/1 card is going to go for less than a signed Gannon Burr 1/1. It's just the way it works. I don't know what my 1/1 is worth. Is it worth $20? Is it worth 15? Is it worth 40? I have no idea. Because there is no real market yet. And I will say that I think there are not a huge amount of collectors out there. There's an okay amount, but there's not, like, there are very few completionists out there that are looking to get cards. And I don't know what to say as far as how you set the value of these cards.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. And I think, obviously, just a flat-out generic starting price to realize that every card, in theory, should be worth at least the $6 that it cost. And then you're going to look at the scarcity, the rarity. Obviously, there's the condition of the cards. We're going to assume they're all in pretty good or great or near mint condition, at least to start. That's getting a little bit more particular and finite, but it's so tough because if I had yours is a great example. If I had the Rebecca Cox 1/1 and somebody offered me $50, I'd be like, I don't know.
And that's
well
for
how
you,
about 100?
Yeah, for you,
I don't
that's
know.
difficult because you don't like to get.
Well,
rid of
I'm
anything.
just saying
you don't want to sell anything for less than what it's worth, but you don't know what it's worth. That's the problem. So I know you very well. You would have a hard time letting that go just because you don't know the value of it.
Well, but even if somebody threw out a number right now, again, until somehow we start setting these prices, any number sounds like nothing more than a pull out of the sky. That's why I said if somebody said, "Hey, I'll give you $50 for that one," I'd be like, I don't know. How about 250? I don't know. Like, that wouldn't be an immediate sale for me, just because we truly just don't know. So I I think about scarcity, rarity, how many people are trying to get, like you said, if they're trying to get complete sets or not, what will make a complete set? I mean, clearly you can't have every single card, and then there's only so many 1/1s or 1/25s.
Yeah, they've got different versions. Like, I want to say, it's almost like subsets inside of these because you've got the base ones, which I'm going to see if I can read this here. There's base cards, and those base cards are like red, blue, black, basket case, Bayside check, silver check, and gold check. So there's base cards, which all have the same picture, and then there's different style backgrounds. And obviously, you could have a complete set of each one of those. I know Mike Harrington here is a huge card collector, not just disc golf, but I think he does other collecting as well, baseball cards, I'm assuming. And he is trying to get like the full, red and black sets, which are not extremely difficult. Those are like 1 in 2 and 1 in 3 odds, as opposed to the base, which is 1 in like 1.4, I think. My glasses. I need new glasses. Yeah, I was right. 1 in 1.4, as opposed to like the other ones, which are 1 in 2, 1 in 4. I don't know. I don't know, Terry Miller. I don't know what they're valued at yet. We'll just kind of keep looking. They might not be worth anything.
Yeah.
We paid a pretty penny for them. They're beautiful cards. I'm not gonna lie. I love the way they look. But we've seen that I've got it in here, and I'm not gonna bother opening up the box that's in the box. The original 2016 set. Those were going. I heard things of people selling the complete set of that for $1,500. I've got a complete sealed set in there, which doesn't include all the bonus cards, but I've got, I think, almost all of those sitting here too. A couple grand.
Yeah.
I got a whole bunch of singles, which honestly are probably not worth hardly anything. Really, what's a Devin Owens 2016 card worth? The bucks, maybe.
My heart.
Oh, my heart too. We all love Devin, but
no, there's or I think of someone like a Devin who's not on the tour anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these other players that earned a card but then aren't necessarily playing anymore. Peter McBride comes to mind right off the top of my head as another player.
Alex Geisinger.
Yeah, who obviously made a return here at the just a few weeks ago in Minnesota. But yeah, there's tons of them. George
Todd, Al Hermosillo, Dutch Napier.
Yeah,
I mean, these are all guys who maybe still play, but not necessarily on the tour.
They're not tour card holders.
James Snappy Cole.
Yeah.
Samuel Henderson.
So
Colin Bailey. These are guys that most people haven't heard of, unless they're playing regionally these days.
Regional to them, yeah. Yeah, no, it is kind of interesting to see people trying to complete sets. Are you concerned more about specifically the player? Are you a big fan of the player, or are you trying to complete a particular set or something of that nature? Yeah, I know that my 8 or 10 sealed packs of my 2016s are going to be continue to be tucked away in a very safe and secure spot.
And as we know, those are probably worth 30 to 50% less now than what they were at the height of COVID, when card collecting in general was crazy. Everything from Magic to Pokemon to baseball, it was nutty because everyone was sitting around their house and they had nothing better to do than look at cards. Prices are changed. I don't know if anyone sold a complete set in the last year or two, but my guess is that they're not going for the same amount that they once were, just based on all other card prices.
Yeah, and you like you were just saying, you think about the complete sets that are assembled that have the bonus cards or the special cards, specialty cards, and then you think of just your sealed decks and what the price is on those. Obviously, those are probably all going to be in better condition. The fact that they've never been opened, so on and so forth. Yeah, it's who knows? Mike on the board, who we were just talking about, says 2016 is so valuable because it basically every single player's rookie card except for the guys in Topps or Leaf that came before. Very true. And in reference to that, you think about Avery Jenkins, for instance, had a card on Topps, many years ago. Paul McBeth had a card with Leaf, I believe, and with Topps many years ago. So on and so forth.
It feels, and I understand what Mike's saying, but it feels so dumb. Like, it's not their rookie card. Maybe it's their first card, but a lot of these players,
I think,
had been
by
playing
definition what they mean
for a few years, so they're not really rookies. They were established pros, but I understand it's their first card.
There's Juliana Korver. Okay,
so she was rookie of the year, exactly.
I know that's
that's
my point.
It's so silly to me. Like, I understand it being valuable because it's the first, and it's not even the first set of disc golf cards, but it's the first set of Pro Tour disc golf cards, because our buddy Steve Held has a full set of like the original disc golf collecting cards from way back when.
Discards.
What was that?
Discards. I think what they were called.
Yeah,
and I believe I have some. If it wasn't the whole set, I know I have at least a pack of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how many made up the full set.
Yeah, he has that full set that's in framed in like a big poster size thing that someone had given him at one point, and it's really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what's going on with Brixton. Yes, there's been a lot of talk and conversation and hype around them. It's awesome to see, even if you're not a card collector. I think it's kind of cool to see it unfolding, because if it doesn't interest you, you can scroll right past it along with everything else. But you can, and then to really bring this full circle, of course, I bought into the hype. I was a little late to it. In talking to our friends at Brixton, it was a no-brainer that I also jumped on board, and it was just in the last day or two I finally pulled the trigger. So I will be receiving some cards. I made a few purchases. I'll receive some cards, and then I too will try and be cool like the rest of you guys, and I'll do a little live opening so everybody can see what all comes in. So, Johnny, if I pull your card, shit's gonna get real.
Oh, you know what, Terry? Maybe I'll trade you one of my Evelina Salonen signed ones because I got 2 of them.
I don't know. I might need to keep your card.
Maybe you'll get 2 of them. I got 2 signed Evelina cards, so maybe you'll get 2 of them.
I guess we'll see. But
RDB says I just muted the card talk.
Yeah,
we're done. We're done with the card talk. You can come
now. Yeah, Artie, I'll let them know it's officially done now. So that was something else that had unfolded in the last week. I've been playing some golf.
Me too.
I'll just put it out there. I mean, we both actually, have played a little bit of golf. I kind of made a conscious decision, and I don't know how things are going to go as early as tomorrow at this point, but I've made a conscious decision that I was either going to be out on a course or in the gym. And yes, I have chosen the gym a couple times. One or the other. I could, of course, can do both on any given day. I'm not going to say it's only can be one or the other, but I'm either be on the course or in the gym getting some exercise every day is my attempt and has been my goal. And I'm now rolling, I think, on 7 consecutive days. I want to say this started last Tuesday. And last Tuesdays, I think specifically, I had gone to the gym. And then every day since then, I've been able to play some golf. Now, today, I'll use as a great example, as I was rushing around and was unsure of how it was going to go down tonight. I played a 9-hole course, and what's crazy about this, too, is I am kind of in the mood of, like, trying to play either courses I haven't played or courses I haven't visited in a while. There's a ton of options. But today, in the Peoria area, I played a 9-hole course located about 10 minutes north of where I'm staying, and it was 100% about timing. I literally needed a 9-hole course because that's all I knew I would have time for. I had less than, 45 minutes to get it done, and it needed to be pretty close to where I was. And this one was a little out of my way. I went there, and boy, oh boy, not good. Not good.
The course wasn't good, or you didn't play well?
No, the course was not good, and
okay.
and I and again, I try to temper my overall reviews if I get around to writing them. I'm a course designer. I also know sometimes you have plenty of restrictions, you have budgetary concerns, you can only work with the land that you're given. I understand all of that. And then I also think I don't know your official objective with this. Were you trying to make the toughest 9-hole course, that could ever be played? Are you trying to make the easiest course? Will no one over the age of 10 ideally ever play this course? Like, those are things I keep in consideration, even though if I don't know the designer, I don't necessarily know for sure. But when I go to a course and every hole is under 200 feet, I'm like, okay, well, this course isn't built for Ricky Wysocki. This course isn't built for Kevin Jones to come out to, unless he's throwing nothing but grenades, right? So I can appreciate that, and I'll factor that in. This one was weird. The very first hole, it's at a church, which is tons of land around this church facility. Tons of land. Beautiful landscaping for some of it. The very first hole is 396 feet that plays over toward a walking path. And I wouldn't think much of it, except for I saw people on the damn walking path. Like, it plays like almost right to it. I'm like, what are you doing? Why am I throwing at this walking path on a 396-foot opening hole on this little course? Not a single tree in sight either. And
so just wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it. It's a weird way to set a tone for a hole on your opening hole. I feel like the opening hole, and this gets really minor, or maybe nitpicky. There's something to be said that if somebody is coming to a course, especially when I think beginner style, when I think of a 9-hole course, I generally think beginner. And secondly, on a church property, I generally think probably attracting newer players. Yes. You're likely not hosting, again, an MPO division tournament out there. And I think 396 doesn't say beginner at all. It feels maybe could feel a little deflating. But anyway, 396 to this walking path or right near it. And then the pole is completely bent. Like, I'm not good with angles. Completely bent. Okay, well, a lawnmower hit it. Somebody not paying attention. A car somehow got hundreds of feet over and hit it. I don't know. Don't hold it too much against it, but not my favorite opening hole. Walk over to the second hole, and I don't see it. I think it's back, placed parallel to 1, according to the signs, according to UDisc and the signs, 287 feet. It's not tucked in the woods, which would kind of make sense, but it's not. And I'm just like, oh, I don't think I see it. I'm like, well, I'm going to throw it about 300 feet off in the direction, and maybe I'll get up there and the basket's tucked in somewhere else. No, I throw it 300 feet, and that landed me in the middle of the frickin' pond. So one of my favorite wraiths, pro race, beat-in pro race, handpicked from the factory. I think it has a Disc Golf Guy stamp on it, on the front, an over stamp, an additional stamp, in the pond. Oh, and by the way, I found the empty spot where a basket's supposed to be. There's literally no basket there. I don't know if it was cut out, if it was stolen, out for repair. No idea, but it's gone. No basket. That's why I didn't see one.
The basket is probably where your disc is in the pond.
Maybe it's in the damn pond. I just looked and I'm like, because you throw slightly up, and then right behind it, it's recessed where the pond was. And I got up there, and it was like, I'm clearly in the pond. I was so mad about it. And I'm in a super big rush. I'm trying to get through this course in as quick as possible. And I have less than 45 minutes. I'm really trying to, whatever course I needed to find, I needed to rip through it. And anyway, I won't go on with every hole, but long story short, not my favorite course. You got a 330 footer with another than 330 footer, and I just think about what I assume would be the player base, and I don't see how that lines up with playing. There's there's a water carry if you play the alternate tee on 9. It's 357, and it's probably 300 to clear the water. They did have a shorter tee. That basket's bent and loose. Almost every basket on this property is bent, shifted, and or then loose.
I think
so. I don't know if they just took a pole and threw it in the ground.
Who knows?
Not mounted well.
I think traditionally you're right in saying that if it's on a church ground, usually it's more probably beginner friendly, maybe more for the parish or whatever. But the way you describe the course, maybe they were not going for a beginner style course.
Correct.
Maybe they have another church that has a beginner course, and this is their intermediate course, Terry. You know?
That's possible.
I mean,
yes.
Given it's always hard to judge based on the basket. You know, obviously you said some of the baskets were bent and broken. That could be vandalism. That could be anything. We don't. It's hard to say, but I don't know. I think your expectations were wrong.
No, well, and some great comments are coming off the board saying, "Did you not think it was family friendly?" No, and you're 100% right. It might not have needed to be. I mean, I don't need to walk up to nothing but 200 footers. That's more what I expected. But no, it doesn't have to be. And for all the reasons we just said, baskets could have been donated. They were mock 5s. That the baskets all were intact. The baskets and the chain entrapments were technically all intact. Every basket on that property, the 8 that were there, were either leaning over or they were somewhat bent, or they were leaning over because they weren't mounted correctly. Somebody did not do their diligence in properly mounting the I shouldn't be able to go to a basket, and then when I retrieve my disc, the basket actually fully wiggles like inches. Not just a little bit, but inches. They were not mounted correctly. The T-signs were beautiful, by the way. The baskets were not mounted correctly. I wouldn't even complain about the baskets or the condition in which they were in terms of, like, especially if they were hand-me-downs or they came from a previous course. Like, I'm all about that recycling. Don't get me wrong. But there is something to be said about mounting the basket correctly. And that clearly was not done at all. So I'm not trying to rip on I think it was, coincidentally, I think it was called the Northwood Church. because of course it made me think of the Northwood property that gets played this weekend, but I'm pretty sure it was called the Northwood Church. So, um, challenging, yeah, certainly. A couple of 330-foot holes, 396 or 386 to get started. Don't look for hole 2 because it's not there. Beautiful tee signs. Tee pads were nice. They were concrete, probably 4x8s or 5x10s maybe. So concrete tees were great, but I won't be going back there.
You're not
Nor
gonna go
should
back
I.
and get your
It's
wraith?
it's officially checked off the list as a course that I've played. I did question, like, what do you do for hole 2, where there's no basket? What do you do for a score? Do you put down
Just leave a
just a
blank
par?
par.
Yeah, I don't know that you can. I mean, I guess maybe you could on UDisc. I don't know. Anyway, and Ben says Terry's angry. I'm not angrier than Paul's shoulder. I'm not really angry about it. This is more becomes a PSA. I love courses that are on all different facilities. I would not recommend going to this course. That would be my takeaway from this. I'm glad they have a course. I think it's awesome that it exists. I can tell you though, if you have the time, you could skip this course. That's what I'm trying to say. So, but managed to get in. I did shoot another 9-hole course yesterday, Johnny, which I don't even think, I'm sure you haven't played. Have you ever played the Oakwood course out in Heartland?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so, because that was my first time officially playing. I went out there one day, and it was super windy and cold, and I thought I wanted to play golf, and this was like a year or two ago, and I was like, no, I don't want to be outside, and I chose to skip it. Yesterday, I managed Mike Harrington, who we were just talking about with cards. I believe that's one of his 9 holes that he had done. I managed to rip through the red tees, which are the short tees on that course. I had even less time. And this course is 13 minutes from my house. I hadn't had the chance to play it. So I got over there and I parked 1 and 2, which were pretty short and easy. Hole 3, I had to make a good putt. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm going to log this on UDisc. We'll see. And then I managed to birdie the other 6 after that as well. So I went 9 for 9, which is not that incredible of a feat out there in particular on that course. But it was another new course for me and pretty much ready to like take on the pros now.
I think so. I think rather than commentate,
I shot
you
9
should
under.
just be. You should probably bring that up in most of the interviews you do this week. So, Mr. Conrad, I see you shot. Wow, you had a really impressive 8 under par at Northwood Black. That is a great score. Did you know I beat that? I shot a 9 under at this
Oakwood,
this past weekend on a 9-hole. I had less opportunity than you, James, and I scored better. So, tell me how you feel about that.
Average putting distance was like 11 feet, probably. Yeah.
You definitely need to bring it up with the pros,
James. That's probably what I should do. I also shot a 16 under on Saturday, playing with Nora and Brent and another gentleman, all in Dixon, Illinois. If you get a chance, make sure you check out Page Park. That's Page, not Paige. And they gave me a quick tour of the park. 4 of us met up, and we ripped through their 18-hole course out there. Very short, very technical. Makes Valley View look long, is what I'd say, Johnny. Yeah, it was very technical, very short, and when it was all said and done, I was thrilled. I had to make 3 good putts to finish, but I was thrilled to birdie 16 out of the 18 holes. Combined, that course has to be like 4,200 feet, maybe. No, it might not even be that far. Pretty short.
Okay.
Anyway, playing more golf.
That's great. Yeah, I played on Sunday with some friends of ours. Saturday night we went to a friend's, his son's graduation party, and then they invited me to their Sunday morning round over at Brown Deer, which is all of 12 minutes from my house. And so I played a little bit of golf and played mediocre golf, but had fun. The first time I've been out in a while, and my elbow still hurts. so that's probably not a good sign.
Well, here's what, and it's funny you say that because
And
obviously in the first,
it's not like hurts sore as in like, oh man, I can't wait till it gets better. It's kind of hurts as in injury hurts, and it's been that way for a few. It's been that way for a few. Like my inner thighs were a little sore because I didn't stretch out very well. And so but that's like a workout. Oh, you didn't stretch out. You're a little sore from that. The elbow, that's not the. It's a good sore. That's like it's a bad sore where it's still tender. And I've noticed if I not even golfing, if I hold my arm in a specific position for a long time, maybe doing keyboard work or holding a phone in bed, maybe like where it's kind of bent, I've noticed that it gets tight. So I might need to get that looked at. I'm just saying, or maybe next year.
I'm going to admit this. Yeah, the Page Park, which I do recommend to anyone. It's a fun course. Apparently comes in at 3,191 feet.
Woo!
It's that's short, and it's technical, but it is very short. I was going to say 4,000 feet, not even close. Here's what I'll say to kind of go along with your point though about the physicality of it. Of course, I felt sore after playing the first day because it was the first time in months I had played. The second day I felt a little sore. And then it started to wear off, and I'm now at the point where I've played for 6 or 7 straight days, which is probably the first time since 2015 that I've done that. I was trying to do the math on that. And I am no longer sore. Like, I get out and I just go out and play. And that, to me, has been a little piece of what has kept it exciting and going, is the fact that I'm clearly into throwing more, and my arm isn't upset about that.
Yeah, I wasn't sore.
Whereas if you play as infrequently as we do, and you only play once every 6 months, like you're then sore for a day or 2 or 3. I broke past that barrier, and I'm not sore at all, which actually feels pretty great. So that's part of what motivates me to go out and play another round. Is like, oh well, at least I won't be sore, and I won't be feeling it. And if I keep it going, then maybe the soreness will never catch up with me.
Yeah, and I wasn't sore where sometimes I get sore in my pectoral muscle from throwing. I was not sore there at all, and maybe it was because the night before at the graduation party we played a ton of Can Jam, so it was a lot of fun. It was all of the old guys who used to tour with us were sitting there playing, and then my son stepped in for a little while, and he was really excited because twice during practice he nailed the hole.
Can jammed it?
He can jammed it. And I think we had to be playing at about 40 feet. I would say 40. I don't know what the standard is, but it had to be at least 40 feet. And so maybe it was closer to, probably about 40 feet, I would say. And so we did that. And my son and I beat our friends Steve and Kazi 1 out of 4 games. And I thought that was good because my son doesn't throw Frisbee at all. And we were able to kind of squeak out a game. So it was a lot of fun.
For everyone at home, Can Jam, the official distance, just if you're going to play in an official capacity, make up your own rules as you wish, but the official distance between the goals is 50 feet.
Okay. So
if anyone's wondering at home. At one point, I sold 2 full pallets of Can Jam. I was I had an account with them in the original early height.
I think I bought one from you. It's in my garage.
Existence. Yeah. And
my son was excited.
I know I have a couple of them left.
And I think we're going to bring it out for his birthday party coming up with his buddies. I told him, I said, do you want to bring it out? He's like, yeah, let's bring it out for the birthday party. So we'll get some Can Jam going.
A little bit of Can Jam. I like it. Anything else going on in the world of disc golf or otherwise that we need to be discussing?
I don't think so. I think we're just going to get ready for Ledgestone, see how much money Nate Heinold raises for some charity, and watch some awesome golf.
Let's hope so. 4 days, morning and afternoon. Of course, there's going to be a lot of running around in terms of these courses. Having the women at essentially 2 different courses than the men's 2 courses adds just logistically a lot more challenge to everything. And then there's the social component that comes in every night of extracurriculars that are going on, and disc signings and fly marts, along with the dye academies and all those other things. I know I talked about that in the regular show, but a ton of stuff going on. So if you're in the area, you should try and find yourself over here. And then next week we head to, as we start looking ahead just a little bit, we're going to head over to Idlewild. That's going to be the 3-day event. And then, as we mentioned, we'll be over at Deglow for a 4-day playoff event after that. All right, Johnny, you got a giveaway? You want to?
Oh yeah, I do actually.
Also,
and it's all prepped. We have currently.
Look at you.
Well, I just have to sort it. Let's sort it by email address. So tonight we have 129 people eligible for our giveaway, and let me open up random. 129. Yes, we have 129 people eligible for our giveaway.
All right.
To be eligible, you can go to patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. Please support us. We enjoy it. We like it. It helps us out. It helps pay for broadcasting costs, software, server stuff that we do. Yeah.
And my hair product.
And Terry's hair product. I mean, look at that hair right now. Hair product.
I'm just saying we can't do this without
pretty
it.
Pretty soon it'll be his beard dye. So keep up the support and you can...
Earl. Sorry to interrupt you, Johnny. Earl computed the odds. It's 1 in 129. Actually, it's less than that because you can also submit via our website without no purchase necessary as part of that game plan.
Change the odds tonight. I added those people.
Oh no, yeah, I did is 129. I'm saying, yeah, you're correct in that sense. It is 1 in 129 tonight. A few of those being pulled from the website. I guess that's what I was then trying to spit out for you guys. So yeah.
All right.
And good night, Ryan Pilcher.
Patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. Let's show our random.org. Terry, what are we going to draw tonight?
Oh, I'll probably at some point I will just go into the Ledgestone warehouse and steal something. Don't tell anybody. Nate, if you're listening, or Jamie, if you're listening, thank you for the donation, each of you. But I will try and get my hands on something for Smashbox from here at Ledgestone this week. I will do my best to do that. Maybe if I'm really good, maybe I could even get 2, one for this week and one for next week. We'll see what I can do. That'll be the plan.
All right. So what number should we generate? 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 50?
I think we should generate the very first number. The very first number generated is our winner for tonight.
12. The number is 12. Let me bring up 12.
I like it.
Scroll all the way up. Remember, I sorted it by email address, and the winner is Baron Poole. Congratulations,
Sweet.
Baron Poole. He's a $3. He's at the $3 level.
Patron?
Yeah, lives in Massachusetts.
Well, heck yeah.
You're gonna get something hopefully right from Ledgestone. Terry's gonna steal it right out of Nate's warehouse. Don't tell anybody. It might still have the sticker on it. It might still have the RFID tag on it. Shh, don't tell anyone. And I do want to give a shout out.
Maybe I'll go live. I should go live when I
go live while you're stealing something.
Hey guys, I'm in the warehouse. What should I take?
I do want to give a shout out to Nate Heinold and Ledgestone for being Skip Ace's sponsor this week. A $75 gift card. If you are a Skip Ace Pro member, you can enter into the weekly Skip Ace Pro only event matchup and have a chance to win that. So thanks a lot, Nate Heinold and Ledgestone.
Wow, so he doesn't even know it. Well, I mean, he knows he's sponsoring it, but he doesn't know he's going to also sponsor our giveaway.
Hey, that's not our problem. He should have listened to the show.
Yeah. If you don't come on here within 2 minutes to dispute that, Nate, then we're going to assume you're in complete agreement with it. So, yeah, we'll count on that. I don't see anything else on the board that we need to directly address. I want to just quickly give it a once through. Oh, asking earlier, I did check in with the Doss household, and it sounds like they might have some news to announce soon. They were due last week.
Yeah.
Mid to late last week. So I'm, everybody was safe. Everything was good at the time. And if there's going to be any news, I think we're going to see it soon, hopefully from them. And pregnancy on the rise going throughout. And we'll see how that all comes about. But anyway, no new scooters for sure. That one has been.
You should take the new baby out on a scooter ride, Terry. Like, hold the baby
first
with one
ride on
hand
the scooter
and selfie with the other.
Uncle Terry.
Like, hey, we're on a ride with the new DOS baby. Hey, how you doing? As you're going down the road.
Yeah, probably not. And I will echo what we're seeing out here. Ryan Pilcher, who was on the board a little earlier, regular Smashy and big supporter, has gone on. Had also posted a few days ago that the Discontinuum Club, or the club challenge that took place down at Round Lake, in Crown Point. Holy cow! Took place this weekend. Hundreds and hundreds of people there, and when it was all said and done, it was Discontinuum who took it down. So Team Discontinuum, we know a few people on that team, including the likes of McManus and Pilcher and Dustin Skorpinski played for them. I believe Luke Hainwall did as well. So congratulations. A massive, massive event with hundreds of people and representing their clubs. And they've been putting it on for a few years. And this year's champion being Discontinuum, Club Discontinuum. So congratulations to them. Pretty awesome to see. And Tim says, Terry, are you going to be at Idlewild? Yes, I will, in fact, be at Idlewild this event and next week. I am on the ground for almost every event. Closing out the rest of the year, I will be in studio. So these two events, I will be on the ground. Also, Play Disc Golf Northwest misses you, and we have so many courses that are not pissing off Terry. No promises on that.
I want everybody to send the worst courses to Terry to check out. But don't tell him they're the worst. Make sure to tell him they're the best.
I got this real gem for you. Go check out this one. Yeah. I know it says 14 holes and under construction, but it's a real gem, I promise.
Don't worry.
I'm not even picky in a lot of ways when it comes to playing courses. If I'm just trying to check them off a list, I'm not like I take the Simon approach, honestly. Like, I like fun, easier courses, stuff that's pretty straightforward. You're like, oh, hey, I got this 9,000 foot course. I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Where are the short pads? Like, and that's not just because I'm not as skilled, not just because I'm not as skilled as some of the other players, but if I'm out playing recreationally or casually with some buddies or seeing a course for the first time, like, I'm different than some in that, like, 10,000 foot course just doesn't excite me at all. It might be a great course and plays great, but it's also probably not built for me, not built for a 950 or 60 or 980 rated player. Like, 10, 20 rated players have so much more fun on those courses because they're finding the correct landing zones and making it that much more fun. Plus, I don't have a forehand, so I suck like that. Terry, that could be a whole new segment. Yeah, possibly. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Little light on the show tonight, but it's going to be a big week, so I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about come next week as well. Like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. Oh, the other quick thing I wanted to say is I'm going to try and do better. This week won't apply. I'm going to continue to try and do better and release just the interviews, as we've called them. I took Corey Ellis's interview, for instance.
Thank you.
Chopped out just exactly that 1 hour and then released it separately. So if somebody doesn't want all of this ridiculous banter that we go on and on, we drone on and on about, which I understand, I'm going to try and do better at releasing the separate clip of when it's just the interview. And it's appropriately named Just the Interview. And I'm going to try and continue to do those more and more throughout. So if you saw those pop up, just know it's everything we did during the regular show, but it's trimming down to just the interview. So I'm going to keep on that. All right, Tim and the rest of the Smashies, again, we love you guys. Thank you so much for the support, whether you're a Patreon subscriber or you just tune in every single week. Whatever it is, we appreciate you guys being here. Thank you to everyone listening in an audible-only format. We appreciate that. Any reviews or stars you can give us on whatever you're listening app, that certainly helps us as well. So for Johnny V, I'm the Disc Golf Guy. That's been Podcast After Show 465. Have a great week at Ledgestone or wherever else you're playing or watching disc golf. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.